Can you start the whole thing over, please? Don't post that.
This is better than whatever I had planned.
Dude, please don't post that.
This
Please don't.
is better than whatever I had planned. Like
All
this
right,
is a bit
start the
original.
whole thing over. Start the whole thing
Yeah, okay.
over.
Okay, yeah. We'll start it over. I'm here with Angelo Calfo. Angelo, can you tell me what you're doing?
Thank you, Zane. Yeah, I am the owner of Odyssey College Recruiting, and Odyssey College Recruiting is a company that helps and guides players to the college soccer system in the United States. I work with players domestically, and I also work with players internationally outside the United States that want to come and join the American soccer system for collegiate athletics. So whether that be NCAA, NAIA, JUCO, those are the, federations that I work within to help players find schools that are right fit for them, and not only just for soccer, but also for their academics.
Angelo, what is the biggest mistake that you see young players make in the college recruiting process?
The biggest mistake that I see in the college recruiting process is definitely that players start too late and they expect offers just to show up at their doorstep, regardless of the level that they're playing at. I've seen MLS Next guys go through their entire recruiting process being told by their clubs and by coaches around them that don't worry, something's going to pop up. Oh, for sure, this school that's local to them will give you an offer. Just be patient. And then when that time comes, it turns into panic mode because nothing ever does come. There's a lot of work that needs to go into getting an offer to play college soccer. It's extremely difficult now more than ever to play collegiately. And on top of that as well, there are players that are going to be able to, not send a single email out, not send a single cold message out to a coach, and they'll end up getting offers. But oftentimes these are going to be the guys that are scoring hat tricks at MLS Next events, or maybe they're, highly rated by a nearby college because they've been performing for 4 years. If that's you, this isn't going to apply to you. But for the majority, 99.9% of the players out there, there's a lot of work that's going to need to be done. And just neglecting that and pushing it off and waiting to the last second is going to put you in a really, really tough situation when you don't have anywhere to play.
Absolutely. If you could go back in time, what would you change about your recruiting process?
I think the biggest thing that I would change was getting started earlier. So I had a very similar process to what I outlined before, is that I waited 4 years to get started on the college recruiting process, thinking that some college nearby or local to me will just pop up and show up at my doorstep and say, "Hey, we want to give you an offer." So I think if I had gotten started my sophomore and junior year and I had a really, really clear methodology of how to get from point A to point B in terms of getting a college offer. So that means, sending out more emails, being able to get in touch with these college coaches, being able to go to events to get actually identified and scouted by these coaches with like a proper process beforehand and after to make sure that there's follow up and that there's also communication beforehand, and just having like a really organized way of going about the whole process, because I think a lot of the time I was just doing random stuff that I thought would be the right thing to do, but in reality I had no clue what I was actually doing. So getting started earlier, having somebody that could organize me and help me kind of like go through all the right steps to get there. And I think um, the last thing would probably be taking more footage of myself playing. So more media and more of like a digital footprint that coaches could see.
Absolutely, especially now.
Yeah, definitely more now than when I was, going through the.
You could go back and you're a freshman in high school. What would you change about your recruiting process?
If I could go back to my freshman year of high school, I think the biggest thing that I would look to change would be, first of all, getting started as early as possible in the college recruiting process. So actually like having an idea and a plan moving forward about how I need to progress through the next 4 years of my schooling. So when you're a freshman, there's very little you can do to actually physically talk to coaches. There's going to be Division III colleges that you can speak to and begin to develop those relationships, because you never know where those coaches will end up going. The coach at Oglethorpe College, I actually ended up speaking with him my first year going into freshman, or my eighth grade year going into my freshman year of high school. I started communicating with him and we actually kept that relationship all the way until now. So that's an example of, you never know if a coach is going to end up leaving a program or if you're going to be able to keep that relationship going all the way until it's time to find a place to play. So I think that would have been the first thing, is, begin to start developing those relationships, have an idea about what I'm doing. But even having like somebody in your corner that's been through it, somebody that's gone and been a college soccer player, gone and been a professional soccer player, would have been really helpful to me because I think there was a lot of stuff where I was kind of, just kind of closing my eyes and swinging and seeing what would happen. Whereas if I had somebody that could be there with me through every step of the way, would have definitely provided me a lot of insight.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, would you go to ID camps?
I would have definitely gone to more ID camps. So I went to a couple ID camps throughout my college recruiting process, but I think that ID camps at the end of the day give you the opportunity to play directly in front of coaches. And there's no other medium to be able to do that unless it's going to be at an event or a tournament or a showcase. So if you're not able to go to those, there's no better place to prove yourself than directly in front of a coach.
Mhm.
Now, the flip side of that is looking at it and saying, okay, I'm going to go to every single ID camp. There are good ID camps, there's bad ID camps. There's good times to go to ID camps and there's bad times to go to ID camps. So, for example, my senior year of high school, I decided to go to the University of Denver ID camp. And I didn't really do any research about are they looking for a center mid? Are they still recruiting seniors? Is this a school that like fits me academically and soccer wise? I was playing like the same level as ECRL now, in Division 1 soccer and one of the best programs in the country. I showed up, I scored a hat trick from center mid in the 11v11 game after I was like, I'm gonna get recruited. I'm gonna play at Denver. And then I spoke to the coach after. He was very respectful. And it was the assistant coach at the time. And he said, we thought you played great, but we've got three other sixes. We've already committed one for next year.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you wouldn't even be able to get into the school. And then that's kind of when it hit me where I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I put out the best performance I possibly could have, and it still didn't pan out for me. And ID camps are hard to play at. That's the other thing. You're nervous. Everybody else is nervous. Everybody else is trying to show and, you know,
Levels all over the place.
levels all over the place. Like they're very difficult environments. So, it not only that, it's you want to be mindful of how many you go to. They're expensive as well.
Mhm.
But when you do go, you want to put yourself in the best position possible where if I have a performance like that, I actually could get something out of it. And I turned up at another ID camp. I had the exact same thing that I did. I just was trying to grasp at any straw I could. And a coach from another college ended up seeing me and it worked out. I didn't end up going to that school, but they ended up pursuing interest and I went on a visit to the school. But if I had known back then, what ones are the right ones to go to, which ones are the ones that I probably do best to avoid, that would have helped me a lot, save my parents a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you could give two guidelines for ID camps, like, what, two boxes to check for something to be a good ID camp to go to, what would you
Mhm.
give?
It's a good question. I'm probably gonna have to like switch it up a little bit in the way that
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer it, just because I think that there are ID camps that are good in relation to where you're at in your recruiting process. So as a freshman and a sophomore, I like to think of stuff in like the grander scheme of things. So dream schools and schools with multiple coaches. So for example, if I'm from Seattle and University of Washington is my dream school that I want to go to, and I'm a freshman in high school, absolutely go to that ID camp, get to know the coaches, have a good time, go check out the campus because ultimately they can't really even do much from there. There are going to be some players that they'll communicate with as a freshman, probably on the national team or like we mentioned earlier, scoring hat tricks at MLS Next events. Maybe some colleges are going around the rules and doing that.
Mhm.
But that also gives you a really good idea of the level. Okay, this is what the level of college soccer is like. This is the standard that the coaches are expecting. So having that experience as a freshman, then you can move forward and have that idea in your mind and kind of use that as kind of like a North Star,
Yeah.
and this is what I need to get to. The other thing is going to ID camps with multiple coaches there is you have the opportunity to build more relationships at one camp. So what that means is, say you played really well, you're a younger guy at the camp or younger girl at the camp, and coaches are starting to talk to you. You're able to create that dialogue back and forth with them. You can email them, say, hey, I know you can't really respond to this, but I just want to stay in touch with you. They'll keep track of that, and that relationship is going to continue to build over and over.
Mhm.
So that's like the first scenario. The second scenario is, if you're a senior in high school, for example, like what I was, I had no offers in November of my senior year. I'm not going to go and show up to a University of Washington ID camp. The reason why is because University of Washington was already filled with spots at that time. They were top 5 in the country. And me showing up to the ID camp is just not realistic at that point because they're probably not going to pick a player that was from here. Let me backtrack. I don't think that it would be a smart move because that type of school for my profile at that time just didn't really seem to make any sense. And going to a dream school ID camp when there's like really 2 or 3 months left in the recruiting process is kind of like a hit and hope. If you've got the resources and the time and it works out, why not? And there's not another ID camp you could be going to. But something I would rather do instead is maybe go to a school that I've communicated with beforehand. I've confirmed with the coach that they're looking for a center back or a six or whatever. I've confirmed with the school and done my research, like, yeah, GPA wise, I can definitely get into this school. It has the major that I want.
Yeah.
Then I go to the ID camp. I communicate with the coach beforehand. I'm going to be here. This is my highlight video. This is my most recent games. Communicate with them during and then communicate with them after. And that's a much better way of allocating resources as well and time and energy on the field. Avoiding multiple schools at one ID camp as a senior is another thing that I do, and that's kind of contrary to a lot of advice. The reason why is most of the time at those big events, like exact ID camps, for example, they're going to be sending directors of operations. They're going to be sending people that aren't actually doing much recruiting, but they get paid to show up and do that type of work. So I try to avoid like exact ID camps at all costs because those type of events are really not going to be much bang for your buck, even though it says Stanford's going to be there, Virginia's going to be there, all these sorts of schools are going to be there. When in reality, they're just trying to show up and have somebody turn up that can kind of like check a marker off the box.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to these smaller ID camps that are well put together, even if it's a smaller camp and there are multiple schools going, but it's not like a big national combine, you're in a much better position to do that.
Yeah. She. Okay, last question for you. Say I'm a senior in high school. I have no college offers, nothing in the works. What do I do?
So if you're a senior, no college offers, nothing in the works, the first thing I would do is get really clear about what your goals are. So are you trying to become a professional soccer player? Are you trying to get a sports management degree? Are you just trying to play college soccer for a couple of years and then go do whatever after? The first thing is to get really clear about what we're trying to get out of this experience. Once we've done that, we need to start beginning to have we need to have conversations with college coaches. So making sure that we have a highlight video, making sure that we have a school list, making sure that we have email templates all ready to go, and then beginning the reach out process to these schools. What I would say right now, if a guy had come to me and said, I need to find a school by, January, it was November at the time he reached out to me. I would say you should really consider the JUCO route. You get to keep all of your NCAA eligibility. It's going to be a lot more it's going to be a lot less expensive than going to a 4-year degree school right now. And also, too, a lot of coaches are looking at these JUCOs and they're like gold mines because you've got international players there. You've got guys that were pretty close to the mark, but they don't want to pay for maybe Division 2 or Division 3 soccer. And it's also a great life experience as well to kind of put yourself in a position where you're kind of an underdog and you're able to come from a position of not really having the resources and facilities around you that a lot of JUCOs honestly are kind of operating from, and then betting on yourself to be able to go on and go to a bigger school. Now, if you say, I just want to play Division 3 soccer, I wouldn't say going to a JUCO is probably the best move. Maybe you could find, and if you do enough outreach for the Division 3s, you could find your own spot you go to and you don't need to go to a JUCO. But those JUCOs, I think, are an amazing resource and they're extremely competitive. There's a lot of JUCOs that can beat Division 1, Division 2s, Division 3s on any given day, especially the top ones. So it's definitely not a level thing, but it's more about being willing to put yourself in kind of an uncomfortable position for the future.
Yeah. Wow. That is so much sauce right there. Like, no,
Respect.
actually, like if not just for the younger version of myself, but I played with so many guys that should have gone a way higher level in college, and they just didn't they didn't have any direction. They didn't know who to reach out to. They had no even focal point to start from. And in like 10 minutes you laid out an entire map that they could use. So this is like unbelievable knowledge for
Thank you, Zane. I appreciate that. No, I think the biggest thing is that, like you said, there's so many players that were way better than I am at soccer,
yeah,
and they just didn't really know what steps to take, what to do to keep playing. I mean, at the end of the day, everybody just wants to keep playing. Gotta keep finding another place to play.
yeah,
I mean, everybody at all times, you just want to have a team, you want to be able to be in a competitive environment.
right.
And when that high school senior time rolls around, if you've got people telling you out of date information and they're telling you stuff that isn't really relevant right now, you could end up like your career is kind of over. You
Yeah,
don't have any play. And maybe you could find like pick up soccer to go do and find, end up going to college and doing whatever, but nothing really playing college soccer or being able to play on like a competitive level team. There's very few things that are more fun than being able to do that. So
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, that's the way the system is set up here as well, where clubs don't really give that information, education to players, or even high school coaches. A lot of them try to do it on their own, but they can't be a high school varsity coach and also be a college recruiting coordinator at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is that there's so many guys that uh, basically every single player, other than the top 1.5%, are gonna have to, if they want to keep playing, are gonna have to undergo this self-led process where they are doing extra work to get seen.
Yeah,
And again, if it's 98% of players that are doing that, most of them have no idea what they're doing. So,
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like a random example, but I was working with a kid from West Togo in Africa. His name was Habib. And
yeah,
Habib had an American passport because his sister lived in Indiana. We went through the entire recruiting process from him in West Togo, reaching out to schools, communicating with these coaches, email templates, changing things up if they don't respond to you, going the more direct method for phone calls, me trying to facilitate the whole thing and use my connections as well. And we were able to find him a JUCO, or not a JUCO, an NAIA that fit his budget, fit what he wanted out of his location, fit what he wanted out of the education. And if he was able to do all of that from West Togo and he never even played on the ground in America,
yeah,
think about all the players that are just kind of going through the motions at ECNL, MLS
yeah,
Next, CRL. They're like, I really want to play college soccer, but it'll kind of show up, or
yeah,
I'll just like he's the perfect example because Habib is a great player as well. I think he's going to do really well in the college system here, but he wasn't a guy who was coming from a professional academy internationally.
mhm,
Uh, he didn't have any pro experience. He was coming from playing at his high school. So this is the thing is that if you have somebody that's in your corner that can help you and guide you and give you a proven process, there's a place for most guys to go play and girls. There's normally going to be a school that we can find for you. So it's really about like betting on yourself, saying, okay, I want to commit to this. This is what I want to do, and then just kind of going for it.
yeah. It's such a competitive advantage to have someone guiding you through it. Like, like even if it's like your club knows what they're doing and they're guiding you through it, but let alone someone like you who's actually gone through it, uh, it's it immediately takes you from just the middle of the pack to like the top 5%. And then from there, it's just on you to do the right things every day. And if you
Yeah.
take action, you're gonna find your spot in college soccer for sure. It's a
Yeah.
massive competitive advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that's important to note is like at the end of the day, the most important thing is really going to be like your ability as a player and your grades. Those are really the two biggest things in terms of placement. But the amount of guys that play MLS Next and have 4.0s, that doesn't always translate into D1. Those are the prerequisites most of the time to get in. Maybe you could have a little bit less of a GPA if you're a starter at MLS Next or you're playing for an MLS Academy, but it still doesn't guarantee anything. And the amount of guys that have come to me and said, I have these things and I'm playing at, whatever, Orlando City or, Inter Miami, even talk to some Inter Miami guys. And it's like, it doesn't guarantee anything. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I said, I appreciate you helping out and looking forward to the next one.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.